In this class, we're going to learn how to solve quadratic equation using the factorization method. Okay, let's start with the first question. We are asked to solve the quadratic equation x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals to 0. Okay, to solve this quadratic equation, you can see that the coefficient of x squared is unity. You understand? That is, a is unity. So we can easily solve this quadratic equation by taking two numbers such that when we take their product, it must be equals to c, which is the constant term in this quadratic equation, and when we add these two numbers together, we must get the second term. You understand? Let me quickly chip this in. The first term is a. You understand? The second term is b, and the third term is c. You understand? So a in this quadratic equation is 1. That means that it is unity. You understand? And b is what? 6. You understand? And c equals to what? 9. So the first step here is that we must find two numbers. Think of two numbers such that when you take the product of these two numbers, you must have c, which is the constant term. The constant term is 9. You understand? So you must have 9. Okay? When you take the product of these two numbers, you must have 9. And when you add these two numbers together, you must add 6. You understand? The two numbers must be summed up to 6, and their product must be what? Must be 9. Okay? What are those two numbers? Those two numbers are what? 3. You understand? 3 and 3. 3 and 3. 3 plus 3 equals to 6. And 3 times 3 equals to 9. You understand? So, as you can see, the sum of these two numbers is equals to 6, and their product is equals to 9. So, the next step here is that I'm going to replace the second term in the quadratic equation by the sum of these two numbers. You understand? The second term in this quadratic equation is b. Oh, sorry. b is equals to 6. Okay? The second term in this quadratic equation is 6. So, I'm going to replace 6 by the sum of these two numbers. Hence, the quadratic equation will become like this. X squared plus, so instead of 6, I'm going to replace this what? 3 plus 3. Okay? So I'm going to have into bracket 3 plus 3 into bracket x plus 9 equals to 0. Do you understand? So here I'm going to proceed as follows. 2x squared plus x multiplied by 3 will give me what? 3x. Plus 3 multiplied by x is what? Plus 3x plus 9 equals to 0. You understand? Now, having gotten to this point, the next step is to factorize. I will separate this quadratic equation into two. You understand? So here I'm going to factorize. Let's start with the first bracket. The first bracket is x squared plus 3x. What is the common factor of x squared plus 3x? The common factor of x squared and 3x is what? X. So I'm going to have x into bracket x plus 3. You understand? Now, what is the common factor of plus 3x and plus 9? The common factor of plus 3x and plus 9 is what? Plus 3. So I'm going to have plus 3 into bracket x plus 9 equals to 0. Okay? So here, you can see the value outside the bracket. I'm going to add those values together. The value outside the bracket here is x, and this is what? Plus 3. Hence, I'm going to have x plus 3 equals to 0. Then, you can see, oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. This should be 3. You understand? This should be 3 because by the time I take the product of plus 3 and x, I will get what? Plus 3x. And by the time I take the product of plus 3 and plus 3, I will get what? Plus 9. You understand? So the right value for this bracket is what? X plus 3. You understand? So how do I know that I made a mistake? I look at the contents in this bracket, the values that I have in this bracket. I see that it is not the same with this. And when you are dealing with quadratic equation of this type, when you get to this stage, when you factorize, the value that you have in the first bracket must be the same as the value that you have in the second bracket. Do you understand? So that is how I realized that I made a mistake. So if by the time you factorize, you realize that this value, the value that you have here is not the same like this, then something might be wrong. Okay? So let us proceed. Now I'm going to take one of these brackets. I'm going to have, since the values are not the same, I'm going to take one of these brackets. X plus 3 equals to 0, that is for this and this. So I'm going to take one of these brackets, either this or this. I'm going to have x plus 3 equals to 0. Here I'm going to have x equals to negative 3 or negative 3. You understand? That is the value of x, okay? Find the value of x in this quadratic equation. 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. Okay? you can see that if you compare the first question that we solved with this second question, you can see that the value of x squared is not the same. In the first question, the value of x is 1, which makes this quadratic equation a quadratic equation where a is unity. You understand? Now, look at this. The value of a in this quadratic equation is what? 2. The value of b is what? Plus 3. The value of c is what? Negative 5. You understand? Now, if you compare this with this, you can see that a is 1, which makes this quadratic equation unity, but here a is 2. So how do we solve this quadratic equation using the factorization method? The first step is that you have to take the product of the first term and the constant term. Listen to the explanation again. Because a is not unity in this quadratic equation, we cannot proceed like we did this. We have to first take some step, and that is the step that I'm telling you. You understand? Now, because a is not unity, that is a is not 1, we have to first take the product of the first term and the constant term. The first term is a and the constant term is c. So here I'm going to have a multiplied by c. A multiplied by c equals to 2 multiplied by negative 5. Here I'm going to have negative 10. You understand? So now, having taken the product of the first term and the constant term, you have to think of two numbers. Hello? Think of two numbers such that when you take their product, you must get the product of the fourth term and the constant term in your quadratic equation. Let me explain again. Now, the first step in solving a quadratic equation where a is not unity is to take the product of a and c. A is the first term and c is the constant term. So I took the product of a and c, I got negative 10. Now, having taken their product, the next step is that you have to think of two numbers such that when you take the product of these two numbers, it must give you negative 10. And when you add these two numbers together, you must get the second term, which is what? Plus 3. Do you understand? The second term in this quadratic equation is this. So, what are those two numbers such that if I take their product, I must get the product of a and c, which is negative 10. And when I add these two numbers together, I must get 3. Okay? Let me give you the time to think. What are those two numbers? Okay? Those two numbers are 5 and negative 2. You understand? Plus 5 and negative 2. Let's check. Please pay attention, okay? Pay attention. Plus 5 multiplied by negative 2 will give us what? Negative 10. You understand? And 5 plus negative 2, that will be what? 5 minus 2, which is equal to what? 3. You understand? So, you can see that the two numbers in which if I take their product, I'm going to get negative 10. And if I sum them together, I'm going to have positive 3 is what? 5 and negative 2. You understand? 5 and negative 2. Okay? So, having gotten these two numbers, the next step is that you are going to replace the second term in the quadratic equation by the sum of these two numbers. Just pay attention, okay? You are going to understand. Now, the quadratic equation is what? 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals to 0. Now, I'm going to have 2x squared. Now, instead of plus 3, I'm going to replace this second term. The second term is what? Plus 3. Hello, listen. The second term is plus 3. I'm going to replace plus 3 by the sum of the two numbers that I think. You understand? So, the two numbers is what? 5 and negative 2. So, instead of plus 3, I'm going to have into bracket 5 plus minus 2. All into bracket. Let me just put another bracket here. Do you understand? Okay? Minus 5 equals to, oh, sorry, there must be x, okay? Because plus 3. Instead of plus 3, I replace plus 3 as what? 5 plus negative 2. If you simplify this, you are still going to have plus 3. You understand? So, and there is an x. So, I'm going to have x minus 5 equals to 0. You understand? So, you just pay attention. You're going to understand. Here, I'm going to have 2x squared plus into bracket. Now, I'm going to have 5 plus into bracket minus 2. Negative times positive will give us what? Negative. So I'm going to have 5 minus 2 into bracket x minus 5 equals to 0. You understand? Okay? Here, I'm going to have 2x squared plus, now, this x will multiply 5 and negative 2. You understand? So, 5 multiplied by x is what? 5x. I'm going to have plus 5x. Negative 2 multiplied by x will give me what? Negative 2x. Do you understand? Here, I'm going to have negative 2x, negative 5 equals to 0. Okay? Very interesting. Now, how do we solve this question now? We have to separate this equation into two before we factorize. You understand? So, let's proceed. Here, I'm going to have this and this. You understand? Please take note of the negative sign. Okay? Take note of the negative sign. There is a negative sign at the front of 2. Okay? Now, let us start with the first bracket. What is the common factor of 2x squared and 5x? The common factor is x. You understand? So I'm going to have x into bracket 2x plus 5. You understand? You see, when you are dealing with quadratic equation using factorization method, you have to be well versed with how to factorize. You understand? So, if you want to factorize this, what is common to 2x squared and plus 5x? X times 2x, I'm going to have 2x squared. X times positive 5, I'm going to have positive 5x. Now, in the next bracket, what is common to, please pay attention, what is common to negative 2x and negative 5? What is common is negative 1. You understand? So, here I'm going to have negative 1 into bracket 2x plus 5 equals to 0. That is the common factor. See, if you open these brackets using this negative 1, you must get this. Should we try it? Negative 1 times negative 2x, that will give us what? Negative 2x. Negative 1 times positive 5, that will give us what? Negative 5. You understand? And another thing to look at is that the content that you have here, the value that you have in this bracket must be the same as the value that you're going to have in this bracket. Are you paying attention? So, now, we have gotten to this point. The next step here is that I'm going to sum the term that is outside the bracket. I'm going to add them together. Okay? So here I'm going to have x minus 1 equals to 0 and 2x plus 5 equals to 0. You see, this term x plus minus 1 will give us what? X minus 1. You understand? So I took 1 out of this bracket. That is 2x plus 5 because I have the same. Okay? So I set it equals to 0. From this point, we can find the value of x. All you have to do is that for the first equation here, I'm going to have x equals to what? 1. That is the value of x here. And for the second equation, we're going to have 2x equals to what? Negative 5. Divide both by 2. X is equals to what? Negative 5 all over 2. You understand? So the value of x that satisfies the quadratic equation is what? 1 and negative 5 over 2. Now, to check maybe your answers is correct, try substituting the x as 1. In this quadratic equation, you must have 0. If you substitute x as negative 5 over 2 in this quadratic equation, you are still going to get 0. You understand? So, by doing that, you are going to know maybe your answers is correct or not. You can see that solving quadratic equation using the factorization method is simple. You understand? You just have to practice. And I have a lot of practice questions in this channel. Okay, so feel free to browse the channel. Go to the playlist on this channel. I have solved series of questions, past exam questions on this particular topic, quadratic equation. You just have to feel free, watch it for free. You understand? By doing that, you're going to improve. You're going to develop. You understand? Okay. So that will be all for this class. See you in the next class.